If you want to know something about yourself, find a place to sit comfortably and say to yourself, my life is not everything I want it to be. And perhaps it's not everything that I need it to be. And by need, I mean my life is so unbearable that the suffering I'm going through made me cynical, bitter, resentful, and unable to have a good relationship, prone to punish people for their virtues because of my jealousy, driving the proclivity to see evil everywhere except within my own heart. So you say, okay, I'm ready to learn something. What's one thing I'm doing wrong that I know I'm doing wrong that I could fix? You will mediate on that until you'll get an answer, and it won't be one you want, but it'll be the necessary one. And it's often something that will point you to small things. Let's say you're sitting on the edge of the bed, trying to have an honest dialogue with yourself, and the little voice says, you know it's pretty messy in this room, and you think, well, I'm way above such trivial niceties as organizing my room. That's arrogance. If you're above organizing what's actually yours, how in the world are you ever going to organize anything else? And so you get on your knees and you think, well, it's time to take a brush to the toilet, and maybe that's where you start, and that works. You start making those micro improvements, real on the ground, actual micro improvements to things you know that are wrong. You'll improve unbelievably rapidly. You deserve to respect yourself. You're important to other people as much as to yourself. You have some vital role to play in the unfolding destiny of the world. You are therefore morally obliged to take care of yourself. You should take care of, help, and be good to yourself the same way you would take care of, help, and be good to someone you loved and valued. You may therefore have to conduct yourself habitually in a manner that allows you some respect for your own being. It is also not what would make you happy every time. Think of it this way. When you give a child something sweet, you make that child happy. That does not mean that you should do nothing for children except feeding them candy. Happy is by no means synonymous with good. You must get children to brush their teeth. You must put on their snowsuits when they go outside in the cold, even though they might object strenuously. You must help a child become a virtuous, responsible, awake being, capable of taking care of himself and others and to thrive while doing so. Why would you think it would be acceptable to do anything less for yourself? You need to consider the future and think, what might your life look like if you were caring for yourself? What career would challenge you and render you productive? What should you be doing when you have some freedom to improve your health, expand your knowledge, and strengthen your body? You need to know where you are now so you can start to chart your course. You need to know where you are going so that you can limit the extent of chaos in your life, restructure order, and bring the divine force of hope to bear on the world. You must articulate your own principles so that you can defend yourself against others taking inappropriate advantage of you, and so that you are secure and safe. Reward yourself to stay motivated. Every step forward counts. Don't underestimate the power of vision and direction. These are irresistible forces able to transform what might appear to be unconquerable obstacles into traversable pathways and expanding opportunities. If your current personality feels like an obstacle for your goals, then change it. Don't be afraid to change. You can't improve if you don't change. Once having understood hell, particularly your own individual hell, decide against going there. Aim to a place where you want to be. You're going to have to put some effort into your life, and you need to be motivated to do that. And so what are the potential sources of motivation? First, develop a vision of what you would like your life to be. Once the goal is established, break it down into micro-processes that you can implement. These small bits become rewarding in proportion to their association with a bigger picture. Each time you complete one of these small tasks, you get closer and closer to the final destination, and that, my friend, is what keeps you moving forward. Doing nothing is easy. You just sit there and don't do anything. That's real easy. The question is, why would you ever do anything? And the answer to that has to be because you've determined by some means that it's worthwhile. And then the next question might be, well, where should you look for worthwhile things? And one would be, well, you could consult your own temperament. And the other would be, well, you kind of look at what it is that people accrue that's valuable across the lifespan. You need a family, you need friends. Like, you don't need to have all these things, but you better have most of them. Family, friends, career, educational goals, plans for time outside of work, attention to your mental and physical health, etc. That's what life is about. And if you don't have any of those things, well, then all you got left is misery and suffering. So that's a bad deal for you. Now think of this. Poorly designed buildings crumble in earthquakes. Substandard automobiles kill their drivers when they crash. Failure is the price we pay for standards. And because mediocrity has consequences both real and harsh, standards are necessary. We are not equal in ability or outcome and will never be. A very small number of people produce very much of everything. The winners don't take all, but they take most, and the bottom is not a good place to be. People are unhappy at the bottom. They get sick there and remain unknown and unloved. They waste their lives there. They die there. In consequence, the self-denigrating voice in the minds of people weaves a devastating tale. In consequence, the self-denigrating voice in the minds of people weaves a devastating tale. Worthlessness is the default condition. What but willful blindness could possibly shelter people from such withering criticism? It is for such reasons that a whole generation of social psychologists recommend positive illusion as the only reliable route to mental health. Their credo: let a lie be your umbrella. A more dismal, wretched, pessimistic philosophy can hardly be imagined. Things are so terrible that only delusion can save you. Here is an alternative approach, and one that requires no illusions if the cards are always stacked against you. Perhaps the game you're playing is somehow rigged, perhaps by you, unbeknownst to yourself. If the internal voice makes you doubt the value of your endeavors or your life itself, perhaps you should stop listening. If the critical voice within says the same denigrating things about everyone, no matter how successful, how reliable can it be? Maybe it's comments or chatter, not wisdom. There will always be people better than you. That's a cliché of nihilism, like the phrase, in a million years, who's going to know the difference? A proper response to that statement is not, well, then everything is meaningless. Talking yourself into irrelevance is not a profound critique of being. It's a cheap trick of the rational mind to conserve energy and avoid making an effort to change, to improve. You know what's wrong with you if you'll admit it. How do you overcome the suffering of life? By being a better person. You'll be amazed by the ability of people to befriend each other, to love their intimate partners and parents and children, and to do what they must do to keep the machinery of the world running. Anyone fortunate enough to be in a period of grace and health typically have at least one close family member in crisis. Yet, people prevail and continue to do difficult and effortful tasks to hold themselves and their families and society together. This is miraculous, so much so that a dumbfounded gratitude is the only appropriate response. There are so many ways that things can fall apart or fail to work altogether. And it is always wounded people who are holding it together. They deserve some genuine and heartfelt admiration for that. It's an ongoing miracle of fortitude and perseverance. Some people degenerate into the hell of resentment and the hatred of being, but most refuse to do so. Despite their suffering and disappointments and losses and inadequacies, and ugliness. Humanity in total, and those who compose it as identifiable people, deserve some sympathy for the appalling burden under which the human individual genuinely staggers. A little sympathy for the subjugation to mortal vulnerability, tyranny of the state, and the depredations of nature. Have a nice day, my friend.